We're into the 6th week now of lockdown. Now, this week we want to talk to private renters, focusing on how they're coping in not just a public health, but an economic and social crisis as well. From the carers and the NHS and other key workers who we applaud from our windows, from balconies, on the streets, on doorsteps, to the students who are having their final years at university suddenly robbed away from them in the biggest crisis since World War II. Now, government support's been provided. For example, they vowed to stop evictions, universal credit's been expanded, but is it enough? You're part of the Dorchester Court Tenants Union. Yeah. Tell me about why that was founded and what its aims are.
So during the winter here at Dorchester Court, there's about 100 flats here, and lots of us were without hot water and heating throughout the winter. As you can imagine, that's not a nice scenario.
No, that's not ideal.
Yeah, a group of us sort of came together and decided, we've had enough. This is not right. This is a problem here that's been going on for decades. I'm sure there's many other NHS workers like myself in similar horrible conditions throughout London, throughout Britain.
It's kind of how a day of work starts. In the car, uniform, gloves. I have a mask, shield face. I didn't find a room at the moment, so I don't have any permanent accommodation. I put all my stuff in storage, and I have my clothes. I keep my food in the back of my car. Yeah, so basically this is my mobile house.
I mean, emotionally, what's the toll?
Emotionally, I'm destroyed. I can't talk with my family because I start crying, and I always text my family, yeah, everything is fine, it's fine. I can't go back to Romania. So it's just up and down. I deserve support just because I wake up every day and I do packages of care for end-of-life people, and I take care of end-of-life people, and nobody wants to work with them. We have to be safe, in a safe place to call home, to be safe, to have a room where you can have a key, to be safe and to wake up and you don't, to know where you're going, when you're coming from, and to just have a warm food on your table. That's not something, a luxury.
Is there not that constant worry on top of so many other worries that you are constantly at risk of coronavirus?
That's why it's really hard to get a place, because everyone, when you hear that you're a carer or you work for NHS in relating with patients, they are afraid to get someone in the house.
How are you able to live at the moment?
It's not easy. So I have all my belongings in the storage. I have part of my clothes in the back of my car, and in the boots I have some food. And I'm working 9 to 5 for NHS, and then in the evening I'm working as a carer. It's just not normal.
So I normally work at Guy's Hospital in the cancer centre there. We're twinned with St Thomas's Hospital, where I'll be starting on Thursday.
You're going to be looking after patients, some of whom will be as ill as Boris Johnson, some more ill, and some of whom will die. And then you'll come back to substandard housing. How's that make you feel?
Frustrating doesn't really cover it. It really angers me. To come home, I've just got a few quotes in front of me here from them. Landlords will look upon payment of rent favourably. To me, that's a veiled threat. The landlord can't afford to give tenants a discount. I came home to that one day after work. It makes you feel sick hearing things like that.
Obviously, you've got your income from the NHS. What about your partner?
My wage is our only reliable wage. I earn less than a fully qualified nurse. Even if I gave them everything, it wouldn't be our flat. It wouldn't cover the rent of our flat.
So when did you last pay rent?
Unfortunately, we had to take the decision not to pay rent. We need to eat. There's many other costs to living, and if it's all coming out of my wage, then I can't cover the rent for the both of us. So since March we haven't been paying any rent.
How do you feel about going to work in ICU?
There's a bit of nerves, will there be enough protective equipment? I've been told there will. Will it work? I have to shave my beard to get the maths to fit properly. That's a little worry just for me. But yeah, like everyone there, we do the best we can in a crisis, and we just want to care for people, help people live.
If I was Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, speaking to you, what would you ask?
I would ask him to come and stay with me for 24 hours. Yeah, to live my life for 24 hours.
There needs to be no rent debt. There needs to be a permanent eviction ban, and rent controls need to be introduced after.
Are you worried that after this phase of the pandemic subsides to a degree, that action will be taken against lauded NHS workers such as yourself? And how does that make you feel?
Everyone is very worried about what happens afterwards. You know, if there's debt, then people can't pay it and they might be chucked out of their homes, which frankly is, it's horrible.
How has coronavirus interfered with your life?
I've had a bit of a weird one. I was due to start a new job back on the 23rd of March. I'd signed the contract and, sort of was ready to start. And then obviously the pandemic hit. I am a subletter, which has been a bit stressful with like universal credit.
How much more rent could you afford to pay?
Probably another month.
In terms of emotionally, what's the impact been?
I think as well there's sort of something about being 25, feeling like you've got something behind you, and then, the prospect of potentially having to regress back to, living with mum and dad. Maybe there's like an identity thing for me, and I feel like I've sort of built a pretty like solid base here in London as like a gay man out and, doing my thing.
We've got our kitchen, we got ourselves a little screen and TV, and you can see here this is a square just outside Lancaster. As you can see, there's one person on the bike and one person on the
that's it.
That's about it.
How's your apocalypse going?
Yeah, my third year's kind of gone down the drain a bit now.
It's pretty lonely. It's definitely different to how I imagined the apocalypse to be.
So how many of you live together?
There's 6 of us in the house, 6 girls.
And what's your rent?
$455 a month, with bills included.
Are you going to struggle to pay it?
No one in my family's working at the minute, so I can't really ask for help from anyone. I've got a part-time job myself, which I'm still having to go to, which is kind of really filled me with anxiety because I don't really want to be out with the public at the minute.
Where are you working at the moment?
Fuel station.
Tell me about Acorn. What is Acorn?
They've helped us here in Lancaster with students' rent because the university has not agreed to let us out of our contracts. And Acorn, Lancaster Morecambe especially, the branch here, has been key, honestly, to helping us get to where we are today, which is having reduced rent for people. They seem to have put a lot of pressure on the university through student media, through students' union as well, and through mainly a petition for rent striking.
Some people will have to still pay all their rent, won't they?
If you move out and you give your keys back and you've completely emptied your accommodation, then you get 100% of your rent back. However, if you don't do it by May 4th, you can pay 25% to keep your stuff here, or you can give them 28 days notice to vacate, after which you'll pay 25%. As an international student myself, I come from Belgium. I have a really hard time getting home. There's one train a day. In reality, I shouldn't even be going home because we're all supposed to stay in place. And I do have people who are at risk potentially at home, and I don't want to endanger them, so I shouldn't go home, really.
Are you thinking of rent striking in solidarity with others?
Yeah, of course. I'm not even sure I can afford the rent, actually. I'm actually planning on moving out within the next month and taking the 28 days option.
Have you thought about withholding rent?
We have spoke about that as a house, but with sort of 2 months left, we don't really want to get into the hassle of this big thing that could go on and on and on.
Are you worried about debt?
Yeah, to be fair.
We've already been in it with uni loans and stuff like that, and I don't really come from like a wealthier background, so it's not something I could really handle.
How do you feel emotionally about this whole period and the whole situation with the rent and all of that?
It is frustrating to finish in such a bizarre note.
Imagine I suddenly turned into Boris Johnson. Weird image. What would you say? What kind of ask for people like you would you put to Boris Johnson?
Just look out for private renters. It just seems like nothing has been done for them, especially I've not seen anything in terms of representation for uni students in terms of renting, and the majority of uni students do go to private renters and they're just not being protected.
Being a private tenant can be pretty tough even before the pandemic hit. The number of private renters over the last 20 years or so has doubled as home ownership has gone into free fall and council housing has been sold off and not replaced. Now, in London, single tenants were spending up to 85% of their monthly wages on rents. And for other Londoners, it was at least half. So when you get not just a public health crisis, but also an economic and a social crisis, it's no surprise that private renters are going to feel the brunt.